So welcome everyone to this episode of Fit Beyond 50, the Live Summit. Today, our really special guest is Dr. Laara van Bryce. She became a chiropractor in 1979. She graduated from Logan College of Chiropractic in St. Louis, Missouri. She's known for her sincere, innovative, and intuitive plus holistic approach, and has helped thousands of people change their lives for the better. Not many of us can say that. So Dr. Van Bryce uses her clinical experience along with researched lab testing to get to the root of the cause, rather than just speaking or doing other methods. You know, she really looks into what might the problem be, which takes time. So I really commend that approach. And our topic today is one that we've all can relate to. Either on a personal level, we've experienced brain fog, or we know someone who has. So I know everyone's listening with bated breath to hear more, because we'd like to know what the research is and what people can do about it these days. Dr. Laara, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction.
So I was going to, first of all, ask you, is there something that specifically made you develop the brain fog program?
Absolutely. It was my own brain fog. I think, a lot of holistic health practitioners end up in that field because they have that issue and they need to solve it, right? And maybe through traditional allopathic or medical care, it wasn't getting better, or, and so you have to look at what are some of the alternative things that you could do, or educate yourself. I first actually noticed a brain fog for me, like my youngest daughter just turned 27. So it was probably that long ago. And I started reading up on it and found out there's, mommy brain. And so, brain fog initially can even just start off as being hormonal imbalance. And I realize we're talking to women over 50, so they're probably not suffering from mommy brain, but they may have experienced that. And now, now I think we notice over 50, we've got, brain fog, maybe from menopause, from that kind of hormonal imbalance. And for that matter, I've noticed brain fog for me from, actually different foods that I've eaten, or if I let my blood sugar get too low, things like that have made a difference for, and obviously if we don't get enough sleep, things like that. So yeah, it started because I had to fix myself.
Right. And so it's interesting that you connected what you call the mommy brain with something you're experiencing now and going, well, it might all be hormonal. There might be a hormonal connection. Mm-hmm. Besides the fact that, as you said, well, no sleep, that's an easy one to remedy if we all did it.
It's actually not that easy for some people to remedy. Like, it's not so easy as I'm just gonna go to bed on time, or go to bed early, or, sleep in late, because a lot of times as we go through menopause, we can't sleep. So there's a number of different things that we may have to do to try and balance our hormones, or our chemistry, our brain chemistry, our neurotransmitters, things like that, so we can actually sleep.
Right. Okay. So then if we've connected it with lack of sleep and we know we're trying to go to bed early, then it's obviously something more, and it's, hormonal. And as you mentioned with the certain foods, I noticed that as well. I'm fairly strict about avoiding certain foods, only because I know that they impact me in terms of brain fog and related. Mm-hmm. So when I'm dying
Which
to
foods are those?
well, definitely if it's sugars and sort of refined carbs, we'll do it for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Yeah.
Wine, I know that sounds silly because it can cause a lot of things, but I can tell 24 hours after having had wine, terrible brain fog. So it doesn't affect me on the day. I go, oh, this is good, I'm going to be fine. And then it's 24 hours later. So it's a very strange connection there, you know. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Well, I wanted to go back to sleep for just a second, actually, because although I said it can be difficult to get proper sleep, it still is important for us to go to bed, say, between 9 and 10 to get that pre-midnight sleep, because that's actually the most rejuvenating sleep. And it's like we get double the benefit from sleeping before midnight than we do from after midnight or sleeping in.
Right. I'm sorry you said that, because it just reinforces what I thought I knew but ignored. It's that before midnight, you know.
Yeah, like not going to bed at 9 or 10 or 9:30, somewhere in there, makes a big difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of know that, but I'm glad you reinforced it. This has been informative for me. Thank you. So, and then you mentioned the hormones. Is that something that you figured out when you were trying to reverse your own, the hormone connection?
Sure. Well, I think a lot of women our age will end up getting on bioidentical hormones, and that is one of the reasons why we do that, is to alleviate some of the menopausal symptoms, and that certainly can help. And I do some hormonal type testing in the office, to not only look at say estrogen and progesterone and testosterone, but also look at melatonin and DHEA and things like that are going to help do a total picture or balance of the hormones, and they're all interrelated. And cortisol too. So cortisol also impacts the adrenal glands, which is our stress, and how we manage that also is going to impact how we sleep or not sleep. And
yes,
the food thing that you were talking about, I have kind of a funny story. I don't know. It's almost embarrassing, actually, but I'm going to tell it anyway, because it was the most obvious thing to me relative to my own brain fog in the somewhat last few years, and that was, so I love chocolate, and I tend to eat a little bit, maybe not daily, but almost daily, right? And I was starting to really enjoy these little brownies from Trader Joe's. They're like an inch by an inch. They're tiny.
Oh, yes.
I would eat a few. And I just started to notice I was getting more and more brain fog. I was going, what is going on? And then one day I noticed how bad it got after I ate a couple of those brownies. And I've never experienced brain fog that bad. I mean, it just, I couldn't believe that I couldn't think that clearly or unclearly. So I went off those brownies and it like cleared up. Now I can eat other brownies and not have that reaction. So I think it's something in those. So there's certain chemicals that we're all more sensitive to than others. And there's something in those that just hijack my brain,
That's so interesting. Actually, that's a very interesting story, though, because you're right. It's something in it that, and not the brownie itself. It wasn't just the chocolate. It was maybe some of the ingredients that they were
Yeah, I
adding.
don't think it was the chocolate. I don't think it was the sugar. I did a food sensitivities test, within the last, I don't know, 6 months or so. It's called an MRT. And, in there it talked about, let's see, like sunflower. Well, maybe it has sunflower lecithin in it, or, I never figured out what it was in there, but it wasn't obvious. It wasn't like just sugar or chocolate, because, I can eat those things and not have a reaction. So
Yes.
at any rate, I also do notice with relative to blood sugar, like I need to eat a good diet for me, because I can become hypoglycemic. And if I become low blood sugar, my brain's not going to function so well too. So
Right,
it's really
because
a
you're more
matter.
sensitive to that drop in the blood sugar.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm never aware that my blood sugar skyrockets and it screws me up, but I'm not aware of it. Maybe it does, but anyway, no. But yeah, so I do find that managing blood sugar can be very important. Also.
As well. It's interesting what you said about the foods, because when you asked me earlier, I had completely forgotten, because it was so many years ago, that the first time I experienced this really badly was I was told that it was wheat. I had a very bad reaction by going off wheat, not intentionally, but I was doing a bodybuilding contest. I was off, and I got onto it. I just overate brownies and muffins and everything, and had a very bad reaction. And this was 30 years ago. The naturopath said, you have to stay off wheat. And I'd forgotten, because it's been so many years, but I do recall one time having, say, some fish at a restaurant. They said they were just grilling it, but they must have put some flour on it. And I didn't even really realize it was so little. But that afternoon, I couldn't work. I could not function. And I had to call them to say, did you put flour on the fish? That's how sensitive I was then. Today I don't know, because I just have avoided it for so long. I've kind of forgotten. But it is interesting what you said about when you said the brownies, like within hours, once you'd had a few of them. Yes. And so do you find
this was within minutes, not
minutes.
hours.
Okay. It was probably a build-up, right?
I think it was. And I think that's the one thing, is that, our food sensitivities like allergies, tend to be accumulative. So you can eat something occasionally, very occasionally, most of the time. But if you keep eating it on a daily basis, you go over that threshold, and then you're toast.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes. And mine makes me irritable as well. So people notice.
Yeah.
And so when you've been doing the hormone testing, have you associated anything specific with any of your patients in terms of brain fog?
Well, I think estrogen is highly associated with brain fog. Yeah.
Okay, so you definitely think the whole menopause thing. Yeah. Interesting. So, and then you recommend the
identical hormones.
Yes, that's right. Now, do you do the testing in your? Or you just send out from your office directly, or?
Oh, well, I have so I have a lab send out the test kit to my patient's home. And it can be a saliva test. It can be a urine test. Okay. So the patient, they do the test at home. They send it back to the lab, and the lab sends me the report. And then we set up an online Zoom meeting like this, or just over the phone if they're not tech savvy, and, talk about the results. And then I make recommendations as to, what they need to do to get more balanced out.
Okay. So that's great. So you can do a lot of patients long distance.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really valuable. And then in terms of a brain fog fix, we're all waiting for that, right?
Right. So I have my free gift is going to be a web page with 10 ideas on it. Now, obviously, there's going to be a bunch more, but I do have 10 of them down there. And I'll just kind of go through some of it really quickly while we're talking here. And then you can sign on and click for my free gift and, check it out. But the first thing I talk about is just that pre-midnight sleep, making sure that you're getting to bed early enough and getting that rejuvenation, because then you're going to be producing growth hormone, which is going to help your whole body heal. Okay? Because that's what it does. And then there's some herbs like rhodiola, for instance, is a good herb for stimulating your brain. Acetylcholine is another product. N-acetyltyrosine. B vitamins are good. Antioxidants are good, like vitamin A and C. And then there's something else called phosphatidylserine, which is in your cells, but it can be very helpful to supplement with it. In fact, so I also do a micronutrient lab test because we all have genetic variances, which make it easier or harder for us to absorb certain nutrients from our food, right?
Right.
So when I did my micronutrient test, it showed that I had some difficulty with some B vitamins, which also tended to make it look like I have an MTHFR gene or genetic variant, which vitamin Bs help to neutralize. And then also I had a serine deficiency. So it's probably not that I'm not eating those things. It just genetically my body has a harder time absorbing them. So doing the micronutrient test can be very enlightening for us to help us, get past this and other kind of underlying health challenges that just don't quite make sense. It's like, why do I have this issue, So that's one of the other lab tests that I do. And then I also talk about balancing your blood sugar. And then metabolic resistance training, which is probably more up your alley, where you want to make sure you're getting enough exercise and you're challenging your muscles and stimulating your metabolism. Let's see. And then we talked about the get your hormones checked. So there's that not blood test, but saliva or urine. And then there's the micronutrient test, which is a blood test. And there's one more. It's a stool test, and it's a kind of a specialized stool test. It's not one that your typical doctor does, because this is a newer one, and it looks for the actual DNA of the bugs that are in your gut.
Oh, really?
And the reason that we're looking for that is because they produce, neurotransmitters for us, which are things that our brain needs to maintain ourselves, like serotonin or GABA or different things like that we need to clear brain fog or keep our energy going and just be normal, be happy, killing off the bad bugs and repopulating with the good ones, getting rid of parasites, bacteria, viruses that are out of balance there, or candida will show up there. Even on that stool test, the gluten sensitivity, if you're eating gluten and you're sensitive to it, it shows up. And
you'd have to have been eating it to be in the stool, right? Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Well, the reaction to it, you wouldn't
right.
find it specifically to it, but you'd find your immune system reaction to it. So those are the tests that I generally do. On the other hand, if someone, in their history, they obviously, well, not obviously, but we think maybe they had like mold exposure, either at home or work, something like that. Like 25% of the population is very sensitive to mold. So that in and of itself could cause brain fog too. So sometimes just by going to sleep at a good time and balancing your blood sugar and, making sure you're taking some of these things and getting the right exercise, will balance you out. And then sometimes you just have to search further.
That's right. Well, I think it's great that there is someone like you who can take that approach and help people do that research. Because I'm sure that there are many people listening who are willing to do that additional work that it takes, to find out, but just don't know who to go to. So,
Precisely. Yeah. Because
Yes.
you're not going to get that at your regular doctor's office for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think when you start discussing these things and the blood tests or the micronutrient tests or the stool tests, the doctors are either not familiar at all, or else they roll their eyes thinking that it's something that's not scientific. So, meanwhile, we're finding out, of course, that this is very scientific these days.
Yeah, actually, I think they say something like, based on the medical research and the kind of care that we get from most of our doctors, they're at least 15 years behind the times or something. It just hasn't hit the medical schools, and it hasn't hit a lot of the doctors, and they certainly don't have time to go out and research that. I'm sure they're just totally overloaded with what they've got, and then also, unfortunately, what the insurance company is telling them they need to do.
Yes, exactly. What you're allowed to do in terms of tests, how much time you're allowed to spend. Yes.
Yeah, so I've been a chiropractor for 40 years, and I have seen huge changes in the in the medical care system, and the insurance companies didn't used to control the medical care like this. It actually used to be the doctor, and our culture has unfortunately changed so much. But that being said, it's really made it very important for us to take responsibility for our own health and not depend on the doctors so much, or, stick to only those things that the insurance company will cover, because your health and your life will suffer if you do, I think.
Yes, wise words. Wise words. And for the reason that we've been brought up in a culture that pays deference to the doctor, with someone who knows a lot more than we do. And so, especially as we get older and we think that we don't have a lot of knowledge and we know that maybe more things are going to happen, we tend to give the doctor more power over us because we want to stay well. That's what we think. But we're here to say, become the CEO of your own health and really take responsibility. If it means getting a second opinion, if it means going to someone who works more naturally, then do that, right? In addition to going to your doctor, get these additional tests, get this additional information. So when you go into the doctor, you can go armed with a printout, if you like, just to say, look, this is the program I'm going to be on, and I'd like you to be part of it. I did try it with my doctor. It was tough going, but at least, we had a meeting of the minds that she understood that I was just taking more responsibility and participating more in the healthcare decisions. So,
right. Yeah.
And do you have any advice for the audience here, just working with their doctors when they want to say, have these additional, or they've had the additional tests with you and got the additional information and want to share with their doctor that they might be avoiding certain foods or are on a hormone regimen or whatever, is there any easy way to broach that and have the doctor become a partner?
Wow, I honestly,
Difficult question. Sorry, I realized.
it's actually difficult for me, and the reason that it's difficult for me is that my doctor of choice is going to be more the naturopath or the herbalist or someone like that. So I did go, I haven't been going to the doctor like that. So I actually don't know how to answer your question. I do, like I do my yearly blood work. Um, and I do a thermography study rather than do a what's that other X-ray breast test that we do?
Yes, the mammogram.
The mammogram, yeah. And so I don't know how to have that conversation.
No, but I think that was actually very enlightening, because I might be like a lot of people who can't quite give up the regular doctor because we feel we have to have our annual checkup, even if it's just to get the order for the mammogram and that, and the gynae sort of thing.
Yeah.
So maybe that's it, because I know that the rest of the time, if I do have any questions, I'm with a naturopath, because I know that he understands my blood work. And so maybe that was the right answer, that we're kind of moving away from the regular doctors. They're very difficult to get appointments with anyway. So yeah, I think I broke a toe recently and ended up just going to urgent care because the first opportunity for the doctor was 3 months, 3 months time. So I think your answer has perhaps given us permission to say we don't have to always have a regular medical doctor, except maybe for that annual, female checkup or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If that sounds reasonable.
Well, certainly, you want some annual checkups for sure. I'm doing some annual checkups too.
Yes.
And you want to have them in your back pocket when you need them, for sure, absolutely. But you also have to learn a little bit more about how to take care of yourself, right? And that's important.
Yes.
And you broke your toe. You're not going to come see me if you break your toe. That's for sure. I'm not going to be able to help you out much.
See, that's it. I'm glad you said about having in my back pocket, because I was going to say that and thought, is that an appropriate term to use? But it is true. We don't want to sever that relationship completely. But at the same time, we know that our ongoing health needs more than the cursory kind of blood pressure check, temperature check, that we would get. So
right. So I think it comes down to acute care, like a broken toe.
Yes.
You definitely want, your medical doctor. You want your yearly, annual kind of checkup. And beyond that, we all are going to, begin to develop these chronic degenerative type conditions as we age, because we live in this society, and we're exposed to toxins daily, and we're exposed to the poor quality of food that we have, and water and air. We're being made toxic on a daily basis. And I think we all need to be, doing things that detox us, somewhat on a daily basis and somewhat on a monthly or yearly basis, But the thing is that as we go down this road of beginning to develop these chronic degenerative things, what can we do to start to turn that around? Right?
Right.
And so that's going to be, it's going to be related to the food we take in, the chemicals we take in, the nutrients we take in, the air we breathe, the water we're drinking, the sleep we're getting. And then, as we age and, our body, say, doesn't absorb as many nutrients as it did before, well, how do we figure out which ones those are, and how do we get them into us so that we're really working on this sort of anti-aging thing? Because I think we can all see where the general population is going, and they're going down this degenerative path, which is a very uncomfortable path to take, right? And we see people, I don't know, dying from terrible diseases. And if we can do something in our 30s, 40s, 50s to start to, reverse those things, start to turn it around, figure out what our specific body needs, because we're all different, I think it's going to make a big difference.
I think you're right, because we can either, we're all going to probably live longer just because we're living in an age where there's the wherewithal to keep us alive longer.
Right.
But if we're going to live longer, it might as well be as healthy as we can be and as active as we can be.
That's my plan.
Yeah, that's my plan too, and probably the audience that's their plan. So they're all listening to get some tips. You mentioned detoxing periodically. Do you have a particular approach to that?
Gosh, I've done quite a bit of detoxification products. Different brands.
Yes.
And I will do 1 or 2 different brands a year and just do their detox. And I discovered that was very important shortly after I went through menopause. I think I started to put on weight and have thyroid issues and assorted other things. And I discovered detoxification, and I started doing that, and I got off my daily mochas. I was having a mocha a day. I discovered I'm sensitive to dairy, so it's probably a really bad thing for me to be having.
And they're so good, aren't they?
Yeah. So, I discovered that detoxing will help you lose weight, gain energy, feel a lot more normal, and that it's not just a one-time thing. It's like you could do it and it depends on what products you're using. Now, some people are probably just detoxing maybe with juice or, making their own fresh juices, or I don't know, or just eating fruits and vegetables. And I think you can only get so far with that. I think if you don't start adding in the herbs that are meant to get your body to detox at a cellular level, you're really not getting as far as you can. So most recently, I've been using the CellCore Bioscience products.
I think I've seen those, yeah.
And I like those products. And I also have used True Cellular Detox, which not only these are kind of long-term detoxes. Like True Cellular Detox, it's a minimum of a 3-month process, where the first month you're taking supplements that are meant to open up the organs of elimination, and so that you can get the toxins out. And then the second month is herbs that are used to detox at a cellular level, and there's binders in there that are meant to bind up the toxins so that they don't float around in your body once you release them, and that you actually pull them out. There's 2 different binders. And then the next month is a brain detox. So it literally has stuff that crosses the blood-brain barrier and pulls heavy metals out and other things like that out. And those can really help too.
And for brain fog, I would think that would be a good one. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And even recently, actually, I did a a detoxification. It was a homeopathic detoxification. And it was from Des Bio. And, you know, I talked to the reps when I ordered the different things, and they were telling me that the best way actually to detox the brain is actually with homeopathy. So I'm not sure if that's true, but I have done it, and I definitely, I felt some improvement. So in fact, recently I did that detox, and then very shortly thereafter, I had done a saliva hormone test and decided I was going to take some DHEA and pregnenolone, because those are hormone precursors, because I was a little low on some hormones. And between that brain detox and the DHEA and the pregnenolone, it was like, oh, wow, I can remember names now. I haven't been able to remember names in years. So
Okay,
I don't know which
one
it was.
Yes.
And it might have been the combination of the, you know, the hormones along with the brain detox or whatever. But I'm a true believer in detoxification. And I think we probably should do some form of it a couple times a year.
Yeah, I think that that's great. But also you've been very generous in sharing some direct information, because, you know, there's so many products out there, and these you've actually tried yourself. So if you're willing, if you send me the names, because people may not have caught them, you know, from the video, I can just add them on to the notes that go with the interview.
Yeah. So, hey, the other thing is, you know, my free gift is my 10 brain fog fixes, but also included in that, when you click through there, you'll see a place where you can actually get a free 10-minute consultation with me, where you can tell me about what your issues you're having, so that, you know, we can see if there's something that it makes sense for you to do.
Yeah,
so
that'd be great, because I'm sure you're going to get some questions from people, and then, you know, to follow up, because it's all very well to get the tips, but no one wants to jump into some of those hormones, some of those nutrients on their own, right? You know, without some guidance.
So it's always good to have some professional help. Otherwise, you're kind of shooting in the dark, right?
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's just adding more pills to your store.
Armamentarian.
That's right. Yeah. So now, how can people actually get hold of you if they wanted to? I know you said there was going to be a link for them to click for the 10-minute, but if someone wanted to connect with you just professionally,
well, they can email me at info@drlauravanbryce.com.
Great.
That's an email that they can get to me with. And they can click through and just, we should have a link on the calendar. It may not, a link on the calendar to my calendar, and they can set up a free 10-minute consultation. They can ask questions, or we can talk for a few minutes.
So that's great. So I think if we're going to leave them with one idea, is sleep. Sleep's really important. How about you? What's your one idea?
Oh, well, let's see. I mean, I agree with you. Sleep is the first thing on my list of all the things that I have on there. And I guess the second thing would also be get your hormones checked.
Get your hormones checked. Yes, especially we're talking to people who are 50, close to it, or over 50. Get your hormones checked. See, I'd always thought that it was just the hormones associated with menopause, but it's way beyond that, and that's what you're confirming today. So yeah,
there's more hormones than just estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone.
There's that cortisol one for the stress that we all have to know about.
Right. Yeah.
So thank you so very much. And
you're welcome, Moya.
Thanks. I really enjoyed that. I'm sure we all got well informed today, and now we have so many more questions. And I'll put the links both to the free gift and to the email. We'll include that in the interview notes. So thank you, everyone. It's been wonderful, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.